Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Arthur Nekshans from the Riga Magicians team. And last evening I played in the Pro Chess League the second round versus Ljubljana Direwolves. And this match actually was quite important for us. As you maybe already know, we finished the match 8 versus 8, so it's a draw in the match. I think it was more or less an alright result, even though I think we were small favorites. And just because I was having some fascinating games, I decided I should make a short recap of what happened in my games. I'm sorry about my teammates. I did not follow them too much because I was too busy playing my own games. So, yeah, what's interesting about this match is that, like many teams, the teams in Pro Chess League are basically composed of national teams. So, for example, our team, Riga Magicians, which name is honoring the great magician from Riga, Mikhail Tal, and of course his predecessor, Alexei Shirov. So we chose the name Riga Magicians just to, honor them, and we try to play more aggressively, more beautifully, so that it's more appealing and interesting to watch. And yeah, so 4 players of our team, 3 players, it's Igor Kovalenko, me, Artur Nekshans, and Nikita Meshkov. Last weekend it was Tom Kantas. We were playing in the Baku Olympiad. And we played against Slovenia. And for Slovenia, they had quite a strong field, Luka Lenic, then Jure Borešek, Jure Skoberne, and Semenik Matej. All of those guys, they're also playing for Ljubljana Direwolves. So it was quite funny. I mean, it was a rematch of the, I don't remember what round it was, in the Olympiad, 9th or 10th round, whatever. So we played the draw, and it was quite interesting to have a rematch, this time on internet. So I played the first game against Leonardo. I think actually they chose their names because of Ninja Turtles. I watched those cartoons when I was a kid, so I loved it. So there's a Leonardo, Michelangelo, and forgot who else there was. So that was quite funny for me. Donatello, yes. So the first game I played white. I found it a hard time to concentrate because I had quite a tough week, and this particular day, because I work as a chess coach on a daily basis and I have a lot of duties to do during the day. So basically I arrived at home about 15 minutes before the start of the match. I did not prepare anything at all. So last weekend when we were playing against Norway Gnomes, my first game against Arian Tiari, I spent basically 1 minute. I just had a quick look what he plays, and I just decided, okay, I'll just go e4. So basically, in such situations, when I don't have time to prepare, I choose the most common continuation, which I usually play on the first move, which is e4. Well, I also play d4, c4, knight f3, or whatever variation. So I just decided to play some offbeat variation, which is the closed French. Of course, it doesn't give any advantage for me, but the typical idea usually here, I want to play e4, e5, knight f1. I'll draw it for you. Then potentially h4, bishop f4, knight h2, knight g4, and go checkmate the black king. Of course, I know the computer evaluation, it usually says that black is perfectly fine here. He just calmly counterattacks on the queen side, but okay, whatever. I just thought, okay, for rapid gain should be good enough. So perhaps I did not play the best way the opening phase. I won't talk much about that. e5, which is a typical move here, I want to reposition my queen on e4, later on g4, after the knight goes to to d5, and then potentially create something on the king side. Computer says black should play here bishop a6, but for a human it's not so easy to understand, because white then can play c3, c4, and then proceed with the plan, and you might ask, what is the bishop doing on a6? And after queen e4, white is actually willing to play various ideas like knight g5 or bishop g5. So this is not so simple. Here I think I made a small inaccuracy. I should have played h4, knight h2, knight g4, but I decided to play via knight e3, and if he doesn't exchange, I go knight g4. So obviously he exchanged, and he had zero trouble here. So at some point I realized there's nothing for me. I thought about some weird ideas like g4, g5. I also thought about some potential ideas like knight h4, bishop e4, knight j6 in the spirit of great Mikhail Tal. But I mean, this just seemed wrong to me because black has done nothing wrong here. So I just decided to make some useful waiting move and then just see what happens. So king g8 is a very normal move. Black wants to reposition the knight via e7 to either g6 or f5. So I just repeated the position for a few moves and decided to play h4 just in case to defend against the threat g5. And potentially in some variations there is some typical idea to sacrifice the knight on g5. If he takes, I take, and then try to create something on the H line. Of course, it's very risky. And I also should remind you that this is a team event. I mean, this is not a single, of course, not a single player event. But I mean, I'm not playing only for myself. My teammates are looking for me to perform well. So I cannot afford myself to drag away in some beautiful variations. I should also think about how I can play that my teammates are not nervously looking at my game and wondering what are you doing there. So yeah, at this moment I was just going here and there. All of that didn't matter much. Basically, I think I'm worse position, slightly worse, because my attack on the king side didn't do anything well for me. So I decided, okay, I'll go for the endgame. And the funny thing is here that I almost missed this threat. Knight takes on h4, but like I said, I mean, I was quite tired in the beginning of the first game. I did not have time to concentrate. So while here I was considering some moves like queen e1 or queen d2, or then I just noticed, yeah, knight h4, okay, thank you, king g1. And here c4, I actually don't like this move. I think anything here is better for black. I don't know, either b5 and then prepare c4, or a4 immediately. Because the thing about c4, I mean, it looks logical. Black wants to bring the bishop on c5 and create some pressure. But after knight d2, I had some funny variations. If he goes queen to d3, I can go either queen to b1 or queen to f1, and I thought my king is closer to the queen side than the black king. So I thought it should be zero problems for me, and I can try to play for win with the zero risk. And after queen d5, a4, suddenly this pawn on c4. It's a bit problem. Of course, the position now is equal. Black is no longer pressuring, but I don't have actually a real plan here. So bishop e7 makes sense. Black is preparing to play g7, g5. So I have to play knight e4, relieving the pressure on the c4 pawn. And I don't like this move, b5. Totally, I don't like this move. I mean, any other move here should be totally fine for black. Queen d5, or perhaps bring the king to e8, d7, where the action is going to unfold. I was going to play something like king h2, h5. I'll draw it. h5, potentially g4, and just bring the king closer. Another idea might be king f1, king e2, and possibly proceed with the same idea. But b5 quite seriously weakens the pawn structure. And I thought actually I'm better here. I was considering some ideas with knight d6, but I could not understand what's going on after knight d6. Let's say something like knight d6, he takes, and something like queen d5. So I thought, okay, I mean, this is a passed pawn, but I might actually lose it. So I decided, okay, I mean, the idea might be still in there, so I'll keep it. Yeah, and here happened quite a small tragedy. I played bishop h6. I mean, it's unbelievable. I had a beautiful idea. The idea was, obviously, that you cannot take with a pawn. And for some reason, I just did not see knight takes on h6. I don't know, it's some complete hallucination. I thought that his only move is queen e5, so I spent quite actually some time trying to evaluate this position. I thought bishop f4, queen e5, and now I can play h6. So I'm playing for the checkmate when there's a time trouble, so I thought, okay, he'll probably play queen d3, takes, I'll take here, king g2, and I thought I have some decent chances here because the d3 pawn is weak, and I thought I'm playing for the win here. And I got carried away. I played bishop h6, and I immediately noticed knight h6. I mean, that was a huge shock for me because I just completely didn't see the move. Of course, the position is dead lost now, and after f4, I was expecting my opponent to play the best move, knight g4 here. So queen g4 is queen e4. King h3 is impossible because of queen e4. I mean, bye-bye. I mean, knight g4 just basically decides the game. And the funny thing is that my opponent did not find it. So I thought I have some theoretical chances here. e3 is very d2, of course, it's a normal move. And now the thing is I have to play knight e1, otherwise black now wants to play knight e3. Knight e3, and I cannot take because of the discovered check and queen. So I have to play knight e1, and of course this is lost, and you can play basically how my opponent played this position. And it was so funny that my opponent was taking so much time here. He was like down on, I don't know, some 10 seconds or something like that, and I had like 2 minutes. So I decided to offer him a draw. I mean, just to mess with his head, just because he's long down. Maybe he'll think for the team that the loss in such a position might be a terrible thing to do, and he might accept it. Of course, he didn't. But I thought, okay, it's a good way to try it. And here, suddenly I had some chances. c5. I think that was the idea which my opponent missed, even though it's winning, of course. Knight e7 check, I go back king e4, and my h-pawn is advancing, so he cannot stop c6, c7, c8, and I win this pawn. Initially, here I was thinking about an idea of playing king f7, king g7, and h-pawn marches forward. But the reality is that it doesn't work. It's something like this. Though I felt there should be some kind of a zugzwang. And something like this. Usually the bishop zugzwangs the knight. I mean, it's usually like that. So let's say something like this, this, and this. That's it, zugzwang. And the white king moves, I lose the pawn. So I did not even consider it much, so I went for h6. Of course, this is dead losing. And my last chance is that my opponent on the last seconds, playing on increment, won't know how to checkmate me. Which he actually could not. He managed to remember the main idea, of course, which every player should know, that use the W pattern to checkmate the white king. You should drag it in the opposite corner where the bishop is attacking. So he proceeded to put the classical setup. This is the right position, and the very simple idea is that you are sort of like making a W principle and slowly dragging the king to the opposite corner. So here he was actually a bit confused that I decided not to go back king h4 but king g6, and he failed to find a move here. Basically any move wins here. It's knight g5, king f6, and bishop c5. So the most important thing is not to let the king out. I don't know why he was so much why he could not find this continuation, but also king e5 wins here. I mean, any move wins here, but I managed to run away. So usually I believe that in these kinds of positions, bishop and knight versus the king checkmating, usually the stronger side is forgiven once, just because you run out of the moves, and there's the 50 move rules that 50 moves you make without passing any pawn, then there is an immediate draw. But my opponent missed the opportunity twice, so he ran out of moves, and he even managed to stalemate me. That was quite funny. So I escaped with the draw. We lost the first round 1.5 to 2.5, even though it was looking much, much worse in the beginning. And it just proved our point that this is going to be a tough match because we have very good opponents. And now I played the second round against Michelangelo, yet another turtle, ninja turtle. So he's a Lukalenic, one of the best Slovenian players. I believe, I don't know for sure, I think second half Alexander Beliavsky, who played on the first board. I mean, not in the Pro Chess League, but for the Slovenian national team. So here, a small mini tragedy happened in the opening. Actually, I just recently was looking at this variation and just managed to mess up the opening. And the thing is that here white did not take on d5 yet. The main variation goes like this: c takes, e takes, a3, bishop d6, then bishop b7, and typical position. I think actually bishop takes on c3 might be possible there with bishop a6. So, but white did not include c takes on d5. So he played a3. I did not start to think too much about these nuances. I just automatically played bishop d6. I think the best move here is bishop takes on c3, bishop a6, and it's fair to say that black is more or less equalized the game. I played here, and suddenly after e4 I realized I've seen this somewhere. So this was not supposedly good for black. So I have to take, and knight b to d7 was the best move here. I made yet another inaccuracy, and suddenly I realized I'm in big trouble, because it's quite obvious now that white is going to make a long castle, and I have a tough decision to make. What pawn to march forward? g6. It's h4, h5, there's an attack incoming. h6, then there's g4, g5 incoming. So I thought, okay, I'll choose the lesser evil. I'll play h6. Bishop e3, obviously, bishop b7. And here I was actually quite surprised that my opponent just went for the straight g4. I would argue that's a great move, but if I was white, I would just play normal chess. I would make something like a long castle immediately. Then possibly with h4 some knight g5 ideas, maybe g4 and g5. This looks so bad for me. I mean, I have to do something. I have to counter-strike somewhere in the center, but it's difficult to do with this pin here on the bishop. e5 obviously doesn't work. c5, I have to prepare it. So, but okay, I mean, my opponent decided to play g4. So obviously I cannot develop the knight. I have to do something immediately in the center. e5 doesn't work, so the only chance for me is do something c5 related. Any move here gives a big advantage for white. I think it's even c4, c5 possible. Long castle is possible. Any move. But okay, I mean g5, no problem. I take. I don't know why my opponent decided not to take on g5 immediately, but okay, rook g1. Normal move. So I have to counter-strike in the center. Bishop takes. I'm not so sure about this move. I would probably include something like knight takes on g5 in the beginning, but maybe my opponent was a bit concerned with some counter tactics in the center, I don't know. But bishop b7, queen b7 suddenly gave me a chance in this moment that after bishop takes on g5, it's impossible, I think so, I did not check with the computer, that it's impossible to play rook takes on g5 because of there's a check suddenly, and I win a rook, unless there's some checkmate for me, which I highly doubt it. And I think I win the game. So that was quite funny. Actually, here for the longest time I was hesitating to play bishop takes on g5. I thought about something like rook d8, I mean, but it felt wrong. And I could not explain what's wrong about it. Because even though there's queen h7 check, I didn't see any direct threats. That's until the moment when I saw knight e4. Well, this looks very terrible. There's some crazy attack going on. Maybe this position is somehow holding. I had huge doubts about it. So I had to make this sad decision. I'm sorry. Yeah. I had to make this sad decision to take on g5. Bishop takes on g5, f6. And I realized, of course, that I'm much worse here. But I thought, okay, I mean, this is not so simple. Bishop h6, which is required move here, probably. Long castle, knight c6. And this was probably the critical moment of the game. My opponent here missed a very nice continuation, but which was by no means obvious. Initially, I thought about queen e4 here, and I was hallucinating typical online chess that he can take. And oh my god, there's a pin, but I forgot there is no more rook on g1. I mean, this is a typical online blitzing when you keep hallucinating that your piece is still standing there, which is not there standing at that particular moment. So obviously that doesn't work. So yeah, of course I saw that, but initially I saw queen e4. Oh my god, what I'm going to do? But there's a very nice move here. Bishop takes on g7. And after rook g7, now I play queen e4. And it seems this is very bad position because there's a very nasty threat either to take here and then rook g1 or queen takes on e6. There's this very, very unpleasant pin. So so this looks actually lost. I don't know. It feels lost. I don't know, something like maybe knight e8. Then I can take here. You cannot take queen takes on g7 because queen a8. Here, this looks very, very deadly attack. I don't know. I did not even analyze this too much. Queen h8, rook g7 something, but still maybe some practical problems. I don't know. But he played bishop e3, and I thought this is wrong. I mean, this looks just wrong. I would choose any other move here. The bishop on h6, it stands beautifully, and I would try to somehow capitalize on the pressure. But going back, I like totally for myself, of course. C takes, here takes. Of course, I could take on d4 with the knight, but then there's some potential ideas with the rook going on h4. So I decided, okay, I'll just play rook c8, potentially ideas of b5 something, bishop c3, and knight e7. All that is very normal, very typical, and I had an idea to put the knight on f5 and protect extra time the pawn on g7, and I'm still striking on the c line, some b5s possible somewhere, so he has some trouble protecting the pawn. Queen e2, queen c6. I think he sort of was gambling here by playing king b1, did not calculate the variations so much further, and initially I thought that queen takes on c4 was possible, and as it happens, it is possible. Of course, there is this nice intermezzo check. You cannot go king h7, queen h5, thank you for the game. So you cannot take with the rook on d8, queen takes on c4, you win the queen, white wins the queen. So rook f8, and I initially thought that this is holding because I could not find any single move for the white queen to attack me. That is until the moment when I noticed bishop takes on f6. And it was such a powerful suggestion for me that this is working, because the point is that after queen takes on e2, rook g7, there's a lot of material hanging, and you cannot even take on f6 because the pin on the last rank. So I did not even calculate much further. But as it happens, this is perfectly fine for me, because I just take with this rook on the 8, which I did not see. I think so, yeah. Rook takes on d8, rook g7, king f8. I just did not calculate this position because I physically did not see rook f takes on d8. But I mean, okay, no problem. I thought knight f5 is so natural move. I just defend the g7, and the pawn on c4 is still hanging, and if he plays b3, I'll play b5. So he played rook e1 and decided to go for a worse endgame. Now rook d8, obviously, there's nothing, rook f8. And I managed to win this game quite nicely, because this is a worse position for white. Very unpleasant, because there are very weak pawns. It doesn't matter that white has this bishop. I can easily attack the weaknesses, and I managed to win the game quite convincingly, even though there were some inaccuracies. But I was quite proud of the idea here that I initially put the king on g6, away from some checks on the 7th rank, and then I play a5 with the idea rook e4, rook a4, or rook b4, and rook b3. And now my opponent just handed me the game. He played rook c8. I think rook b8 was somehow still holding, but I mean, knight d4, some checkmating ideas are incoming. I mean, this is very unpleasant. So he was down on time, so he just, he lost the game very quickly. So this was quite important victory for me, for the team. So we won the game. I won the game, and we equalized the score 4-4. Yeah, and the next game I was given white again against presumably the weakest player of their team. And yeah, and the Pirts of Imtsev is not particularly good opening. I used to play Bishop E3 before that, but I just switched to Bishop D3 because I think this is a better continuation. I saw how Sergei Karyakin easily dispatched Lukman Veli in the Tata Steel Chess tournament a few days ago, and I think Loic went knight c6, e5, d takes, f takes, and knight d5, which is not the best continuation there, but I think it's anywhere. This variation is not a good variation for black. So my opponent went knight a6. I had no great knowledge in this variation, so I was just playing normal chess in the center. Knight b4, I won't allow exchanging the bishop probably, even though I can then take with the c-pawn, I can always play bishop c4. So my opponent completely misplayed it. Here I think he should have played e6, counter-striking in the center, but then again I think it made more sense to do it at this moment without weakening the b6 square. So b5 was a terrible move. I take, and I had two ideas, knight a4 followed by c4. This is a very weak pawn, and I just march forward in the center. This is a very bad position for black. But I decided, okay, I'll just keep the square of c4 for my knight. Knight b5 should be played immediately here. He included bishop g4, which gains nothing for him. Actually, this bishop might be in trouble later. If I play f5 and h3, I just capture the bishop. And the a6 pawn is weak. So he just missed the pawn. I take the pawn. So I thought, okay, this is going to be easy win very quickly. Yeah, right. I mean, okay, knight d4, some activity, but I mean, black is down the whole pawn. I have the pawn center. I have better piece coordination. The bishop on g4 is standing stupid. I thought about some possible ideas to play f5 immediately here, but I did not want to calculate too much because let's say he takes, I take. There's suddenly some queen c8 ideas, some double attacks on the rook, on the pawn. So I thought, okay, I can always do this. I mean, I have still an extra pawn up, so I can make some normal moves. Rook a7, which is a good move. Rook a8, I just take. And here, apparently, I could have decided the game immediately. I saw f5, of course, takes, and now I just did not see this move because there's some nice geometrics. Takes, and knight e3. There's no way to defend the bishop on g4. But like I said, I mean, I did not concern myself too much about this problem because I'm still a healthy pawn up. I have a very good position. There are some attacking perspectives on the king side. I just played the normal move, queen h4, threatening to play e5 immediately. So obviously the bishop has to go away. H3, just in case. I mean, keep an eye on the g4 square. Bishop b5, giving the bishop away, not a good idea probably, but I mean, it's already a difficult position for black. c3, just in case, keep an eye on the d4 square. f5, very thematic, very typical, bishop h6, and I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, plus the pawn, potentially, I'm sorry, the wrong color, potentially the knight, attacking the poor king. And the extra pawn, I mean, should be easily winning. Knight c7, which is a small blunder, and I found a very nice continuation, knight takes on d6. Obviously, he cannot take on d6 because I can go for bishop takes on g7, or if I want, I can go for some fireworks. I mean, it's not necessary. Queen takes on b2, and well, here's some nonsense started. I got carried away. I mean, I had plenty of time, and the simplest win here is just take bishop takes on g7. King g7 and e5, and goodbye, game over, that's it. I mean, the knight cannot go away. I want just to take on f6. I'm up an extra piece, and this should be easily deciding. Well, I rushed. I thought, okay, I'll play e5 immediately. So where's the difference? Because yet again, I physically did not see my opponent's continuation. He played rook a2, and I realized, oh my god, I mean, suddenly it's not so simple to defend against this threat. And while being under this suggestion that my opponent has found some resource, I did not find queen g3, which is still winning. I play bishop e4, which is a not good move. Queen g3, I would imagine it's something like bishop takes on h6, I take on f6, there's an incoming threat. Bishop takes on g6, which should be decisive. I play bishop e4, and I had some funny ideas that if he takes here, I can take either with the rook on f7, and there's some checkmate on g6. But then I noticed that queen c2 is a bit unpleasant. Yes, so there's no checkmate and I'm down a piece. And I have to keep an eye on my checkmate on g2. But I thought, okay, I mean, I can always take with the knight on f7, there's some checkmate on g6, the knight on h6 is hanging, d6, e6, something, whatever, queen g4, queen c8, h8, whatever. So I thought, okay, this should be somehow winning. So my opponent apparently believed the same way, so he took on d6, I also took on d6. And here he found the best move, I did not see this, f5, it's a very strong move. I have to keep an eye on the g2 square, and I spent quite a lot of time calculating here the following variation. I take on c7, I take on e4, check. Here there's a checkmate threatening on g4, so I play something like queen g4. Obviously king h6 is impossible because of queen h4 checkmate. So I thought about this. Bishop takes, here, check, check, king g8, and I just could not find a continuation, and there is still checkmate threatening for me on g2. So I thought, okay, what about rook f6? Rook f6 looked very interesting, very promising. That is, until the moment when I saw this check here and queen to g5. So this seems yet again not giving me the desired result. So I decided to discard it. And after e takes f5, I decided to play queen f3. Knight b5 is the best move, I think. I'm not so sure. I did not check it so much thoroughly with the computer. I'm not an engine slave. I like to think over the board most of the time. I mean, of course, during the game I do it only with my head. But I mean, after the game, in the postmortem analysis, I like to think myself instead of asking all of the questions for the Silicon Beast. So here, apparently, this is a draw. My opponent should have played knight takes on c3. And the point is, after queen e7, king h6, and if I go to queens, so let's say I exchange, there is a very unpleasant check, knight e2. And I cannot play king h2 because queen e5, and actually it is black who is winning. So king f2, knight f4, it is actually white who is escaping with the draw here. But to be honest, I mean, I don't have to do this. I can always force a perpetual queen h4, queen e7, queen h4, and this is a draw. But I mean, it would be a disappointing position, I mean, after having such a dominant and easily winning position after the opening. Well, my opponent was down on time, so he took queen takes on c3, so I managed to win the game in a couple of moves. So that was quite fun. Until the last game. So the last game against Donatello, yet another turtle, Ninja Turtle. And I was playing black. The team score is 6 versus 6. So obviously this is a very important match. A lot of depends on it. So I decided to play it safe. I'll just play the variation which I know most well. And I was surprised actually that my opponent was playing so quickly. And I realized that, is it possible actually that he has prepared for this game? I mean, wow, that's amazing. I mean, these guys are taking it very seriously and prepared against every single player because he was like blitzing out these moves. And I had a game in the Baku Olympiad versus Rauf Mamedov. And I had analyzed this game, this variation, together with my student and my teammate Nikita Meshkov. Initially, the story behind this move is that I saw a game, I think it was Marek Matias versus Ottomar Ladva. Ottomar Ladva is a very good grandmaster from Estonia, And I sort of borrowed the idea that here after bishop e5, g3, if I'm not mistaken, there was some classic game of Vladimir Kramnik versus Fabiano Caruana. And Fabiano, I think here played knight f6. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was. And we decided to improve the game. Initially, it was Otomar Ladva who decided to improve the game, so he played knight e7. And I decided to analyze this position in thorough because this is a very critical position of the queen f3 for the Tamanov system. Queen f3 is a very, very dangerous continuation. So the question is if this variation actually holds or not. So during the Olympiad, we analyzed this variation quite a lot. And Nikita, in the previous round, played it against Benjamin Bok from Netherlands. He equalized easily and scored a very, very important victory for the Latvian team. So we beat Netherlands 3-1, which was actually one of the biggest upsets in the first rounds. The next day, we were playing against Azerbaijan, and it was me this time who was playing black. So I decided yet again to go for the same line. And not surprisingly, Rauf Mamedov and the Azerbaijani team, they were ready for that. So he had prepared this variation quite extensively, but even then he did not get anything out of the variation. I think he went queen c4, queen b8. I'll just show you a couple of moves. F takes, knight c6. Actually, I don't already remember the game. So, no, I think it was, I'm sorry, I think it was something like rook d1. You see, it's funny a bit, I forgot my own game already. Yeah, and there was some complicated line which I had analyzed, but I had forgotten during the game, and I had to remember all of it. So, yeah, but apparently Queen c4 is not so good move. And there was a game recently, I think in Isle of Man, where Fabiano Caruana played against Sergei Movsesyan. I was watching the game live, so I felt a bit honored. I mean, that people are playing this variation, and maybe they've even seen my game against Rauf Mamedov. And yeah, and I think Fabiano in the game, he went rook d1, and Sergei, he played something not very good. He took here and played, I don't remember, some not so good move, maybe f3 here. And he got a much worse position, so he did not get out of the opening. We analyzed this position in one of our training sessions in Riga Chess School, together with Nikita Meshkov, who is also playing for the Riga Magicians team. So we found some continuations there, and we were quite confident that the position is holding and it is all right for black. But here, my opponent played rook d2. And I did not remember this move because I had not analyzed it at all. So I decided, okay, I mean, shouldn't be any difference. So I took on f4, e5, knight g6, knight d5, queen a5, a3. The whole point was that in that variation, the rook was on d1. Rook e8, g takes, d6. There is no queen e3. During the game commentary, I watched the archives. Georg Merv completely rightly said that queen e3 seems to be winning. Yes, but where's the point? The point is that the rook is no longer standing on d1. And after, let's say here, if the rook would be standing on d1, I would be playing bishop g4, completely equalizing the game. Or queen f2 for that matter, I'll just play bishop g4. So I did not understand the difference. I mean, this was a rapid game after all. So I played very quickly d6, and after queen e3, it's just dead lost. But here, actually, after b5, I think black is b5, bishop b7, black is fine. Maybe slightly worse. Also, here is f3 a possible move. I mean, I still believe in this variation. I think is quite all right. Okay, but the funny thing is my opponent here played queen c4 with the idea of not knight c7, but queen c7. I have some troubles with the queen, and I cannot exchange on c7 because there is a fork. And I did not even consider some moves like d takes on e5. So I decided just to go bishop e6, and here already I was ready to sacrifice the queen c7, and I thought it's just obvious. I don't know, I mean, it seemed very obvious to me. I was not so sure where to sacrifice, on d5 or on d2. Because if I sacrifice on d5, Queen d5, rook d5, bishop d5. There are some additional ideas, some rook c8 on c2, some potential ideas, some bishop e4, something. But I thought, okay, I mean, this is looking more natural. And bishop takes on d5. And here my opponent made the natural move, rook g1, even though e5, e6 was slightly better defense. But I mean, come on, we're playing a rapid game. We are not computers. I mean, rook g1, I took on e5. Materially speaking, I'm alright. But the king for white is very much vulnerable. I mean, there are so many unpleasant threats. I can play rook d8. I can play rook c8. I can play knight h4. For example, if he plays f5, I play knight h4, which is very unpleasant. So he decided to took on e5 and play bishop e2. Here I found a very beautiful continuation, bishop on f3. And the main motive of this variation is that I want here to give a check. So let's say there are many ideas, but let's say some random move, something like whatever, h4. The idea was that I want to give you a check. If you play bishop d3, I want not to play rook c8. So if you go something like, I don't know, here, I just take and play rook e2. That was the whole point of the combination. I mean, okay, not the combination, but of the maneuver. Not to allow to play bishop d3, because this is the natural move. After bishop d3, I think actually here bishop d3 is even better move than h4. h4 is just stupid move. So after bishop d3, I thought, okay, I can play this. So queen d6, there's some tactics possible, knight c4, rook d8, even though maybe not necessary. So let's say queen a5, I just take on d3, so this should be winning, obviously. And king d3, I figure the king is so much exposed, there should be something. The three pieces are attacking the king, and then materially wise, the position is equal. This should be winning, I mean, for me. So, yeah, I think this is actually the case. So my opponent thought, basically, I think the only move here, rook g5, now rook c8 is very unpleasant because, I mean, I cannot take now on e2 because rook takes on e5. I cannot play f6 because queen g7, there's a checkmate in one. So rook c8 solves that. And after rook e5, which seems like a blunder for black, there's a very nice intermezzo check, rook d8. Take, and it's just technically winning position. And I don't know, somehow I did not manage to win this. It should be easy win here. So from this moment I was playing more or less alright, and any move here was winning. h6 was winning, g5 I think was winning. h6, g5 is the simplest move which I could possibly, the simplest idea which I could possibly imagine. But I played very quickly f3 because I was under a suggestion that because rook g1, I'll play bishop takes on, rook takes on d3 and f2. So there's some simple tactics. And bishop e4 obviously loses to f2. So I thought, okay, this is game over immediately. And I just completely missed bishop f1. And as it happens, I have some trouble defending the pawn because he just wants to take on g2 and play rook g1. And I just did not see the following continuation, which probably is winning. Rook g8, takes here and g5. Takes and g4. Because of the so well advanced pawn, I think black is a huge favorite to win this game, even though maybe some problems here. I mean, not so easy to understand. The king might go to the king side, it might go to b6 and cause some trouble there, so not so easy. But I mean, to be honest, I mean, I just did not see it. So here I found a beautiful move, f2. Rook e2, actually rook e2 is a mistake. He should have went rook a1 or rook c1, and the computer says it's a draw, but I mean, rook e2 looks natural, right? I mean, bishop f1, rook f2. So here I found a beautiful move, rook d3, check. It's probably the finest move I made lately. The point is, after take, this is just a winning endgame for me. I think so. Here, game over. Okay, you might include any other move like b5. I just play here. So this is just easily winning. The pawn endgame is easily winning. So obviously my opponent did not even consider that. And yeah, so here rook d4. That's the whole point of the combination. I've pushed the king further away. But the thing is, I don't think that this is actually winning. And I had such a suspicion during the game just because the c-pawn is so much advanced. And initially I was thinking about this variation. And when I was looking at it, I thought that my opponent has to play this. Take, check, here, take, here. Which I'm also not sure if this is winning or not. But I was not even considering it because I noticed that there's a6, b takes on b6, and suddenly it is actually white who is playing for the win here, because he just wants to play rook b1, b7, b8, and queen. So this was a bit unpleasant surprise for me, which I discovered in the analysis. I mean, while I was calculating the variations, and the game proceeded more or less forced. All of these moves make very much sense to me. c6, h4. My opponent here made a mistake, which I immediately replied with another mistake. c7 is a very bad move. He should have played something like king c4, king c5, king b6, and the Silicon B says it's a draw. But I mean, in the time trouble, when both of us, we have like 40 seconds on the clock, this is the deciding game. The match is 7.5. The winner takes it all, so to speak. And I feel that I should be winning, but I mean, where? And after c7, this is a mistake. I saw actually that there is h3 move, but I don't know why I did not play it. And I think there are some big chances for me to win, because I'll put the rook on the 5th rank, put the pawn on g5, and slowly bring the king to the a pawn. I don't know, maybe there's a draw, but I mean, it's a big chance for me to play safely for a win and for the team win. Well, yeah, I made the terrible move g5, and yeah, king e4 here. I only had considered rook c6 here, check, which is actually a normal move, but I thought only king f5, and after h3 I sort of believed that I should be alright here, even though actually here king f3 looks totally fine for white, and I don't think white is actually risking anything because of the so powerful pawn on c7. Yeah, and the game ended in a draw. Here was one more moment. He could have exchanged rook c5, the rook's take on h4, this is a draw, and I missed the intermezzo move here, rook h8, to force him to play king h3, then play king b7, and some slight theoretical chances to win after rook h5, rook a5, and maybe the pawn is advancing very quickly. But even though I think still should be a draw, but the last chance I missed. So the game ended in a draw. So that was quite entertaining round, and I truly enjoyed it because I was having such a bad form lately, and I was happy that I could finally show some quality chess. The last month for me was quite terrible. I lost quite a lot of rating points in rapid, from 2670 to like 2600, from blitz 35 points. I played badly in the Rilton Cup, so I hope that Pro Chess League is helping me to bring back the form and just enjoy playing chess. And maybe that's what it's all about. I mean, enjoying what you're doing and not being too much concentrated on the result, and then you play just great chess. I mean, yeah. So this was quite great, and I really wait for the next weekend when we can produce some more games, hopefully more in the spirit of the Riga Magicians team. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you for following us on the Twitch, on the chess.com, on our Facebook page, and keep following us, and we'll try to keep you entertained. Thank you. Artur Chicks is out.